Hey, folks, I'm just going to jump into the second question for this evening from LinkedIn. So, huge thanks to this person for sending it in. Friendly reminder, if you want questions answered, leave them in the comments. I will try my best, or look for Dev Leader on social media. That's my main YouTube channel and my personal brand. Or look for Nick Cosentino on LinkedIn. Send me a message. I'll try my absolute best. I'll keep you anonymous if you message me. If you leave it in the comments, it's not anonymous to begin with. Okay, so the context here, I'm not going to read the whole message just because, but we'll kind of call out some details here that I think are relevant. This person is in a position where they have two developers that are the same level as them, but they're going to be leading a project. And so that means that they're leading the project where these other two developers are joining. The other two developers are new hires. I just want to see if this person mentions their experience. Uh, I think I think they're working towards senior. So they have yeah, we all have around 2 to 3 years of experience. Okay, so like mid level, right? Um, and so that's great. So junior to mid level, it's hard to like just know based on someone's years of experience and not know anything about that experience. So let's say mid level. And what they're saying is my goal isn't to come across as superior, but rather to support them. Good start. I think that's super important. Support them, the team, and ensure we all succeed together. Yes, yes, and yes. This is, I feel like one of those situations where I'm going to offer my perspective and advice. This person doesn't even need it. I think that they're probably going to do an excellent job based on what I've already read and what they were asking about. Let's keep going here. I really admire my previous engineering manager and hope to embody the kind of leadership that he had. So, this is good. So, what I want to call out is, before I keep reading here, is despite anything I say, one takeaway that I would recommend is to whoever's watching this and to this individual, think about those characteristics. Think about the interactions that you had with that engineering manager, how they made you feel in certain situations, why you admired those things, right? You might have been in a situation and you were like, they were talking about the progress on something, I don't know, giving an update to the team, and you were like, hell yeah, like that's cool. Or you were working through something and they made you feel like, um, I don't know, like valued in what you were doing, right? Like that they were recognizing you in a way where you're like, okay, I feel seen, like I feel like someone's understanding me. Think about those types of interactions. They could be very small things, but I think honestly that, and everyone has their own style, but I think there's a lot of little things that we do, right? As people that are trying to lead others, there's a lot of little things we do, and it's the culmination and the sum of all those things that kind of makes your style. And so I would think about what those things are that you really liked, and try to see how you can adapt that for yourself. It might not be the exact same way that you do it, but the outcome. Like try to think about those things. But let's keep going here. Um, so then they were saying, I think I remember you mentioning this like on one of your Commute videos, that if you want to be a senior engineer, you should start behaving like one, or something like that. Yeah, that's right. So here's what I've done. So he said, help them get set up. They're both new hires. Sharing knowledge about the code base, projects, contribution process. Awesome. Schedule check-in calls at the end of the week to gather feedback on the onboarding. Awesome. See how they're doing. Assigned new hire friendly tickets. Great. So in general, we want to try and find something that's going to help people build momentum. You could be principal, senior, whatever level, but when you're getting into a code base, finding something where you're like I just want to like see the process of like how we get some stuff going on, and you build momentum build momentum from there. Words are hard. Um, you might find that the more senior people get that momentum faster, or maybe it takes them a while, but then once they get it, they're like off to the races. But point is, you start off that way. I think it's a good way to do it. And they said one challenge I face is that I wasn't informed ahead of time that I would be mentoring them and be the lead developer. Okay, so good. Um, he said that caught him off guard, and they've actually shared feedback with the CTO on this. I'm assuming it's a pretty flat structure because they say we don't have engineering managers yet. So this person's manager, I'm assuming, is the CTO. And personally, I don't know their working relationship, but and I'm not a CTO, but If I were a CTO and I had an employee come have a conversation with me about that, I would appreciate it. As long as they weren't an asshole about it and they said, hey, look, like, by the way, like, this caught me off guard. I wanted to prepare for this more effectively. Just a heads up, and had a had a conversation that was like telling me ways that would help them be more effective. I would absolutely value that. That's my own perspective. So I like seeing that. Then they said, I'd really love to hear any advice you have on leading a project and being a good team lead. How can I effectively guide them without making it seem like I'm trying to be above them? And how do I ensure they feel supported while also pushing for success of the project? These are all great questions. This is going to be, it's going to be challenging, but I think that this person is looking at things the right way. So I like what they said about, I don't want to seem like I am superior to them. I want to support them. So where to start on this? Okay. One thing, like, I personally like over index, and I'm kind of calling out a bias here. So if you're hearing my advice, you can kind of understand maybe where things are coming from. I definitely have a little bit more of a bias to like be a support role. I am literally an engineering manager. I've been doing this for like 12 plus years. And when I was doing it for the first 8 years, I was an IC and an EM at the same time. But my bias is to help people. Now, what that means is, and if I were to suggest to this person, like, hey, make yourself available to help people. Number one, we have to understand what's an effective way to help people, because it's not doing their work for them. That's a trap. And number two is that the more time you spend helping other people, if you have your own things that you need to deliver, that time, like, you still need to put that time in somewhere. My sort of disclaimer is that when I was doing this kind of stuff before as an IC and an engineering manager, I just worked a shit ton. I'm not recommending that. Now, they might be at a startup. Maybe that's kind of expected. To be honest, I have no idea how the startup I was at would have been successful if myself and other people weren't putting in tons of wild hours in the beginning. I think we had to do that in the beginning so that later on people didn't have to do it. Is it possible we could have sustained it or like got as far as we did without doing that? Sure, I don't have a crystal ball, but I'm just saying, I might expect that this person is putting in a little bit of extra effort, and that might be the case. Maybe because it's the first time they're doing it. Maybe the more experience they get doing this, the more they can kind of balance this stuff out. But I would expect, if you're leaning into being more of a support person to help them and make sure they're successful, you will probably find it's challenging to get your own tasks done. So a couple things like on that, like strategy could be carving out time, right? So making sure that you can structure your calendar in different ways. I'm not telling you to be super rigid on this stuff, but you might want to actually block out some time where you're like, I need to have my head down and work during these times. And it's not that you just like tell the other guys to screw off, but you just let them know, like, hey, like, this is my head's down time. I need to get some stuff done. And if you have questions and things for me, like, please just like send them on chat or queue them up and send them in an email later, or whatever, however you want to do it. But just like put some boundaries up, right? Especially if you're going to be leaning into helping them a lot, put some boundaries up for yourself and make sure that you can get some work done. I want to talk about helping people because I hinted at it. I haven't said it explicitly in this video. I've made other videos on this stuff, but you can get a feel for this from people. Sometimes you'll know like very quickly, and people just do a good job of this. I always say that when you're helping people, we're going to talk about this from the perspective of people coming to you for help. In other videos, I've talked about junior engineers asking for help. And what I will say from the perspective of someone being asked for help is you want to ask one question. Right when someone comes to you for help, you say, what have you tried so far? It's a very easy cue. And really what should happen is like, and you'll want to figure this out too. If they're coming to you because say they haven't tried anything, they're like, I haven't done anything. The next question is like, do you need me to clarify like what's being, like what the goal is? because I think there's two things that can happen. There's always, I'm oversimplifying it, so please understand that, but either someone doesn't have clarity on what they need to do, in which case, please just clarify it for them and send them back off, and they're off to the races. Um, but if it's not a clarity thing, if people are saying, well, I haven't tried anything yet, give them a little bit of space to try something. This is a coaching opportunity, in my opinion. I've seen this work very well because I've seen the opposite happen, and then two people get screwed over by this. So I'll explain in just a sec. But let people know that you expect them to have tried something. This helps for a couple reasons. One is that it starts to teach them to be curious and to problem solve, right? Say, like, that's an expectation. Like, you're a software developer. You should go be resourceful. You should be curious. You should try to poke around and understand things. So try something, right? I expect that of you. The other thing is that it teaches people that, it builds up the pattern where, like, you are not doing their work for them. And this isn't meant to be like a malicious thing. Sometimes people get into this habit of, like, I'm just going to ask for help as soon as I'm feeling a little bit blocked or unsure. Then you ask for help and someone's like, no problem. And then they kind of just do it for you. And then you go, great. Okay, awesome. And then you go to your next thing you have to do and you're like, I don't really know. You go ask for help and then someone kind of does it for you. Now, it feels kind of good in the beginning. And then for both people, it ends up sucking a lot because the person getting the help isn't getting any better. And the person giving the help is basically doing two jobs. So my advice is encourage people to try something. So what have you tried so far? If they tried some stuff, great. We can build on that from there. But a lot of the time, if people haven't tried anything, they need to have that encouragement. If they have some options and they're like, hey, well, I could go this way, I could go this way, or I tried 5 options or whatever it is, and like none of them worked, then spend the time, right? But that's how I would approach that. I feel like that's one of my best pieces of coaching advice for helping others help others. I think something I wanted to talk about beyond that is avoiding micromanagement. And I feel like this person's already, they haven't said it out loud. It's a LinkedIn message. I haven't said it out loud. They didn't write it to me. And it's to avoid micromanagement. And I think that a way that you can navigate this is, like, if you're leading a project, you're going to be responsible for telling whoever the other stakeholders are. Maybe that's the CTO, maybe that's a product owner. I don't know enough about the setup here. Maybe it's literally the customer. I don't know. As the team lead of this, the project lead, you're going to have to understand how you need to get information to stakeholders. That's important. That's going to look different in every situation. So if you don't understand it or don't know how to do it, that's totally cool. You need to figure it out, though. So maybe you have a conversation, I guess not with your manager, but with your CTO, who is your manager. Figure that out, what that looks like, get on the same page. But then, now that you understand that, how are you going to get status from the others? Because what doesn't work very well, and I see this backfire all the time, and I have to, even after 12 plus years of managing people, I have to be very careful about this. If you're constantly going after people and asking for status, sometimes that can get, depending on the person, they can start to feel micromanaged from that. They're like, dude, like, why is this guy asking again? Like, didn't I just tell him? They have a different concept of like how that information's being used. You might be getting asked like more regularly for status updates. And then what? Like, if you're not sort of embedded in all the work, you have to go ask. So try to be transparent about this early. So, like, hey, like, here's what we're thinking about doing for status updates. By the way, if I have to ask you out of band for this kind of stuff, please just understand I'm trying to get an update to the other stakeholders. And if you're feeling uncomfortable about that, maybe like have this conversation with them, right? If you're feeling uncomfortable about that, maybe we can come up with a strategy where there's a bit more of a push of status updates, and that way I don't have to chase you. So I'm currently leading a really big project right now across my larger team and some other teams. And we have multiple status updates per week. And there's some people I have to chase down for status. And I try to have conversations of like, hey, like, by the way, You know this is coming. We've been doing it for months already. Like, you know where to put the updates. If you don't like me chasing you, you know what to do. Otherwise, I'm chasing you, and like it's because I need to have ownership in terms of making sure that I can be successful in these things. So I have to do it. But I have conversations with whoever I can about, hey, if that's not working, like tell me the way that you want to provide the update, and we'll come to an agreement on it. Like, I need you to help me, but let me help let me help you help me. I don't know if that's too many helps, but I think you get the idea. And that way it's like we're trying to minimize that feeling of like being micromanaged. Another thing is that um, depends on your project situation and stuff. Some of the stuff that we're working on in terms of deadlines, like we have a deadline for this overall thing that we're doing. Some of the stages don't necessarily have a hard deadline. It's not like, again, it's not like a perfect Gantt chart and we like, hey, we have to hit this exact milestone across these, 100 people and like it's going to be perfect. Like, no, it's not going to happen. So, we have ETAs for things. If people are about to miss them or things are lagging, when we're doing status updates, we're not trying to create this scenario where we're making people feel bad. Because what happens is then people they start to go, oh well, if I am falling behind, like I don't want to say anything. I don't want to get in shit for that. So people start to be fearful, then they start to hide status more, and then it perpetuates this problem. Now they're dreading the interaction where you're asking for status updates because they're like, I don't want to talk to this guy. Like, I can't tell them that I'm like 3 days behind, a week behind. Like, so it starts to become like a sort of a vicious cycle or like a compounding problem. So I like to remind people, like, if there's a really hard deadline, then I need to make that very clear. But the general idea is like, I need the status as early as possible if you think that your sort of ETA is slipping. And that's not because I'm coming after you to scold you and make you feel bad about stuff. My entire job leading a project is to make sure that the project succeeds. So if you are off target, I'm not there to like, my job isn't to make you feel bad about it. My job is to support you in doing it. Right? Like you're blocked. Cool. Like, please what are you blocked on? Like you're not getting people on code reviews. Like they're not responding. Cool. Let me help you chase them down. Like, let me go talk to them and say, you understand the criticality of this? You understand the timeline? Please, depending on the project you're on, like that might be something you can do. If you have partner teams that aren't engaging or they have dependencies that are blocked, maybe I've been in situations on projects where there's an entire team where they're like not prioritizing it and they're like, yeah, like it's just not really like important up through our leadership. I have to escalate through my leadership to talk to their leadership because our departments are not on the same page. Like that's an awkward spot to be in. But like that's the kind of thing that I end up having to do to make sure that we can move a project along. So it's not me chasing the person down and saying, you're behind, like you should feel bad. It's no, thank you so much for raising awareness to that. Now let's go identify what's going on and how do we unblock it? Because as this person said, it's about making sure that the individuals, pardon me, hiccup, individuals succeed, the team succeeds, the project succeeds, they all succeed together. So you have to try and make sure that people feel comfortable to share status updates and not fearful if they're going to be off. So try to, find your own creative solution to that because I think that that's going to look different for everyone. Um, yeah, I'm trying to think. Sorry, I mentioned in the last video I had a pretty long day. It was like just a lot. But I wanted to make sure I got to this question and another one. So I'm just trying to see if there's anything else that I want to suggest. Talked about how to address helping people in terms of how they like asking them, what have you tried so far? Status updates. Yeah, I don't know. Like this idea of, I can really appreciate when someone's like, I don't want to try to seem like I'm superior to someone. So this is actually something that I try to make sure that I'm doing as an engineering manager. And it's funny because when I started, I don't know, I think I was like 23 or 24 when I became an engineering manager. So I was pretty young. And I feel like as a result, and we had a lot of like interns and like sort of early in industry hires, early in career hires. So I kind of felt like I was just one of the people. Like, it's easy to be relatable because I'm also fresh out of school and it's a startup and no one knows what's going on. And now I'm realizing, like, yeah, I guess I'm getting older and I don't know if I'm as relatable anymore. But something that I try to make sure that I'm doing, I don't know, like I can't tell you like state that I've been successful with it. I try, I think it's working, but I try to make sure that I am relatable, right? That I'm not trying to put myself in a position that's like, look, I'm telling you to do this, right? I'm not like ordering people around. I'm trying to, like, if people are stuck, like I'll tell my team, hey, if, like, cause my team uses C sharp, a lot of them, and I program in C sharp every day outside of work. And I'll tell them, hey, you're stuck on something. Let's get on a call. Like I'll debug it with you, right? Like I'm not above you in that regard. Like above you, right? Yes, technically from a hierarchy I am, but like I'll get my hands dirty, right? Oh, you're running, queries to pull data and stuff, and you don't know how it works. I'm like, I don't either. Like sit down and debug it. I'm happy to join you on this and like show you that I will do the things with you so that it is like so that I am more relatable. That I am not just like sounds like a you problem. You better go figure it out while I go do my manager things over here. Um, Sometimes I have to do manager things, but like you know what I mean. Like I'm trying to make sure that people understand that I will I'll get my hands dirty with them. So um, I think that the way that this person has awareness of that's really important. I will say that there may be situations, and you have to be prepared for this. If you're like me and you're trying to be very relatable all the time and like letting the team try to make decisions and stuff and like give them that some of that autonomy. There will be situations that like you can't just do that and assume that you'll never have to sort of be the adult, so to speak. I always wonder like when am I going to feel like an adult? I'm 36. What? Yeah, I'm going to be 36 in April. I do not feel like an adult still, but I'm bald now. I got white in my beard, so I guess I became an adult at some point. But um, there's going to be situations where people are disagreeing on stuff you need to kind of get a path forward. And it's like agree to disagree. And we're going to take a bias for action, right? If we make a decision and we agree on it together to move forward, if it doesn't work, that's totally cool. We will own that together. We can pivot, we can adjust, but we can't sit and do nothing. So when you're owning projects like this, you might find yourself in situations where you're like, we got to keep going. And like as the owner of the project, I'm going to put the adult hat on and say, okay, like I'm making the call. Here's why. Here's what we're writing down and going forward with. And I will own that responsibility. If it's not the right thing, own it up. It's not always going to be perfect. And that's a whole other conversation about like, having discussions when you have to own up to like failures and how we pivot, how we learn. So I would just say like, be prepared that that might happen too. Um, yeah. Otherwise, listen to people. I think that's important. I think this person is going to do a good job on this based on what I see that they wrote down, but make sure people are being heard. Make sure that um, they have a safe place to fail, right? Psychological safety is the phrase that's used for that. Um, and when people are getting blocked, help unblock them, but just remember you're not doing their work for them. That also means if you need to show them something, like get them to drive, do screen sharing. I'm assuming they're remote. I don't know. Do screen sharing and get them to like click and go on the command prompt or whatever else, use the tools. If you're in person, don't touch the keyboard, don't touch the mouse. They're driving. It's probably going to feel slow. That's okay because that slowness in the beginning will mean that they have more experience going forward. So I think that's my recommendation. I wish this person all the success. I think they're going to do an awesome job. Um, yeah, I'll send this over to them, and then I'm hopeful to hear back and see how things go after the project. So I hope that was helpful for them. And I hope that if you're not this person, that there's some takeaways there that you can think about and maybe they're relatable for you. So thanks for watching. Sorry for being a little down. Um, but yeah, I just wanted to get to two of these LinkedIn messages. So I will see you next time. Take care.